A glamorous Indian bride, a powerful sheikh, a secret past uncovered too late, and a crime that shocked the world before sunrise. A glamorous wedding in Dubai had just wrapped up, with a sea of VIP guests, high-profile influencers, and flashy luxury everywhere, and everyone watching believed they had just witnessed the happiest beginning of a perfect marriage between Sheikh Amir Al Nasir, a powerful Middle Eastern billionaire in his late 50s known for his wealth and political reach, and Anya Sharma, a 26-year-old Indian woman raised in London who carried herself like royalty even though her life before meeting the sheikh stayed mysteriously private. And the global audience who followed the event online only saw the fairy tale highlights, the gold-trimmed ballroom, the extravagant diamond jewelry gifted to her, and the way she smiled like every dream she ever had was finally real. Yet beneath the sparkling decorations and curated images, there were tensions nobody noticed. Because the sheikh's family was surprisingly absent from the ceremony, and the bride's family looked distant, uneasy, almost afraid, especially her mother, Priya, who couldn't stop glancing at her daughter like she wanted to confess something but didn't dare to speak up. While the sheikh's loyal security chief, Hassan, monitored every guest, every whisper, every step Anya took, as if she wasn't marrying into love, but into surveillance, power, and expectations that came with terrifying consequences if she failed to meet them. And though Anya tried to hide her discomfort, she felt trapped once the guests started disappearing into the night, realizing she barely knew the man she married or the secrets he kept locked behind his cold smile. But what she didn't know yet was that Amir also had doubts about her past. And deep inside his stubborn pride lived a growing suspicion that the universe had played the cruelest trick on him by bringing this woman into his life, a suspicion that, once confirmed, would unravel the darkest family secret ever buried and turn a fairy tale wedding into something far more sinister within just a few hours. As the wedding celebration faded into silence and the palace suite doors closed behind them, Anya felt a pressure in her chest like the air had suddenly thinned, because being alone with Sheikh Amir was a completely different world than the smiling, public persona he displayed earlier, and his eyes carried a storm that had been hiding all day. Fueled by the unanswered questions surrounding her life before London, her father's identity she always avoided discussing, and the documents she signed without reading under the pressure of becoming a princess overnight, and now, standing in a room decorated with thousands of white roses and gold furniture worth more than most homes. That glamorous setting felt like a cage as Amir poured himself a drink, staring at her not with affection, but like she was some kind of puzzle he needed to solve before morning, while Hassan, positioned right outside the suite door, listened for any signs of unrest, knowing his boss's temper could erupt like a wildfire if triggered, and Priya, Anya's mother, sat alone in her own luxury room, trembling with guilt, terrified that the truth she had spent decades hiding would rise to the surface and destroy her daughter's life. Because she recognized Amir the moment she saw him, not as a stranger or a wealthy suitor, but as someone tied to a past she hoped no one would ever connect her to. And meanwhile, Amir's private investigator had just delivered something to his phone, a set of newly uncovered records that didn't match the story Priya told about Anya's father. And the sheikh's jaw clenched as he scrolled through each detail, convinced he had been tricked but terrified of what trickery meant for his reputation, his family legacy, and the laws of his culture. And while Anya tried to calm the tension with polite conversation and hopeful smiles, Amir's silence grew heavier, colder, as though every moment she stood there made him more certain she didn't belong in his world, and that tonight wasn't a celebration at all, but the beginning of an investigation he intended to finish, no matter who got hurt. Amir couldn't sleep, pacing across the massive suite while Anya stayed seated on the edge of the bed, noticing that every step he took seemed more aggressive than the last. And when his phone buzzed again with additional background checks, the sheikh's hands trembled with rage because the DNA results he ordered in secret, something she didn't even know he had access to, were completed, linking Anya's bloodline to his own family tree in a way that struck him like a punch to the chest. And while he didn't fully understand how it could be possible, The name listed as her biological father was someone he once knew very well, his estranged son from a forbidden relationship decades ago. A child, he was told, had died at birth, and that revelation hit him with a sickening wave of betrayal, making him feel like the past he tried to bury was laughing back at him. But instead of confrontation, he kept quiet, processing the nightmare unfolding in front of him and silently staring at the woman who, without knowing the truth, suddenly represented humiliation, scandal, and a threat to everything he built while outside the suite. Hassan received a coded message from the private investigator, instructing him to be prepared for worst-case reactions if the sheikh demanded immediate action, and back in Priya's room, she paced with her phone in her hands. Terrified to contact Anya because she knew Amir had discovered too much already, realizing her biggest lie was now a ticking bomb that could explode and ruin both their lives before sunrise, and even though Anya kept trying to speak, desperate for a sign that the marriage could still feel real and safe, the sheikh remained cold and silent, running scenarios in his mind about how the world would judge him if this information ever became public. Convinced that someone deliberately set him up and that Anya, even if innocent, had become the face of a conspiracy meant to destroy him. And as the night crept toward dawn, the weight of the truth twisted deeper into something dangerous, because Amir al-Nasser had never been a man who allowed anyone to make him look weak, not even his own blood. The tension in the suite thickened as Sheikh Amir's breathing grew heavier, anger bubbling beneath his calm exterior while he stared at Anya like she was a stranger who had invaded his life with a purpose he still couldn't understand. And the silence became so suffocating that she finally stood up, trying to approach him, only to watch him step back like her presence was poisonous, because inside his mind he was reliving a lifetime of buried mistakes. The reckless relationship he had as a young man, the secret child whose existence was erased for the sake of reputation, and now fate had twisted everything into this nightmare, where the woman he legally married could be connected to that forgotten bloodline. And though every logical bone in his body told him she might be innocent, his pride told him someone orchestrated this, turning his own history into a weapon against him, fueling his paranoia that powerful rivals or jealous insiders planned this marriage to destroy him publicly. And as Anya kept demanding to know what she did wrong, he grabbed the phone and opened the DNA report again, scanning the results he barely understood but feared with every breath. And when she asked about her mother, Priya, he clenched his fists, convinced that woman had played him from the start. While downstairs, Hassan began receiving orders through coded messages that hinted at containment and damage control rather than protection, and Priya, overwhelmed by regret, finally attempted to reach Anya, only for the call to go unanswered because Amir snatched the phone away from her, escalating her confusion into terror. Realizing the power dynamic of this marriage was shifting into something dangerous she wasn't prepared to witness. And Amir's mind kept circling around one terrifying belief. If this information reached authorities or the media, his entire empire, his identity, and every ounce of respect he owned would collapse instantly. And that fear mutated into rage so quickly that it felt like the walls of the suite were closing in. Because for a man like Amir al-Nasser, survival always came before mercy, and the sun wasn't even up yet. As the first light of morning slipped into the skyline, Amir's paranoia reached a breaking point, his thoughts twisting into something more unstable with every passing minute as he replayed the DNA report over and over until the numbers and names no longer felt like coincidence but evidence of a betrayal planted deep within his own home, convincing him that Priya and Anya had orchestrated a calculated scheme from the moment they met him. And while Anya kept insisting she had no idea what was going on, her panic only fueled his belief that she was acting, especially when she tried to tell him her mother had been distant about her past for years, which to Amir sounded like a rehearsed defense, not fear. And the longer he stared at her, the more he felt like he had been tricked on a global stage, humiliated in front of royal families, business titans, and media worldwide who already began posting headlines calling the marriage the union of the year. And it sickened him to imagine those same outlets tearing him apart when this secret exploded publicly. So he made a decision rooted entirely in pride, power, and fear of embarrassment. No one beyond this room would ever learn the truth. and that meant containing the situation before it spiraled out of control, leading him to call Hassan inside the suite under the guise of extra security, while Priya frantically demanded hotel staff allow her into her daughter's room, terrified that her silence had pushed them into a disaster she could no longer prevent. And Dr. Reese Collins, a U.S. forensic consultant visiting for the wedding, sensed something was deeply wrong when he noticed guards rushing to the top floor without explanation, setting off alarm bells in his mind that tragedies at the hands of the wealthy often start quietly like this, behind closed doors, fueled by pride, hidden truth, and unchecked authority. And as Anya backed away from Amir, realizing his anger was no longer silent but burning in his eyes, she knew that whatever secret connected their pasts had just turned her into the biggest threat to the most dangerous man she ever met, and he was about to act on it. The mood inside the suite shifted from tense to terrifying, as Amir's temper finally snapped under the weight of everything he believed was collapsing around him, and Hassan, who entered the room expecting to calm the situation, quickly realized the sheikh was far beyond reason, refusing to hear any explanation and insisting that Anya's presence in his life was a threat planted to destroy him. So Hassan tried to convince him to step outside and breathe, but Amir waved him off sharply, warning him with a glare that obedience wasn't optional tonight, leaving Anya trapped between two men bound to the same authority. And though she kept trying to explain that she had no knowledge of her biological father or any connection to his past, every word she spoke sounded to Amir like another lie crafted to protect a conspiracy, fueling a storm of emotions so powerful that his sense of logic fractured, turning fear into rage and confusion into something darker. And while Priya found a way past hotel staff by crying for help, she was stopped again by armed security stationed near the elevator, begging them to let her see her daughter because she needed to confess the truth. That decades ago, she had a relationship before marriage that ended abruptly when her newborn child was taken away by powerful members of the same royal network Amir now controlled, and she spent her life praying that ghosts from her past would never resurface. Yet fate had dragged them all into this nightmare. And meanwhile, Dr. Reese Collins, nearly certain that danger was unfolding, rushed toward the restricted floor with intentions to intervene, because he knew from experience that powerful families sometimes choose silence over justice, and as tension exploded inside the suite, Anya realized she wasn't fighting just for her marriage or her innocence anymore. She was fighting to stay alive in a story that was never meant to include her as anything more than a secret buried in someone else's legacy. The world outside the penthouse suite remained unaware of the disaster unfolding inside, but everything changed the moment Dr. Reese Collins forced his way past security with Priya right behind him, breathless and shaking as she yelled that she could prove Anya wasn't who Amir thought she was, because the DNA report he received was incomplete and distorted by a clerical error that linked two similar names, meaning the one thing causing all of this panic wasn't a truth, but a misunderstanding created by a system that failed to verify correct identities. Yet by the time they reached the suite, the damage was already irreversible, as Amir stood in shock over what had just happened, an outburst fueled by fear that turned into a tragedy he could never undo, and Hassan, realizing what his loyalty had enabled, immediately called for help despite knowing his own fate was now tangled in the sheikh's actions, while Priya collapsed to the floor when she saw her daughter's lifeless stillness. The secret she kept for so long finally proving that silence is sometimes the deadliest choice of all, and within minutes the suite transformed into a crime scene crawling with investigators, who quickly understood that this wasn't a random act of violence but the implosion of a powerful man, trapped by his own pride, and Amir, stripped of control, was escorted away without resistance, looking less like a billionaire ruler and more like a broken man destroyed by the truth he never confirmed before acting. And news of the tragedy hit global media instantly, turning the fairy tale wedding into an international scandal that questioned the abuse of power behind royal walls. And while forensic teams pieced together the timeline, Dr. Reese testified that the victim had been desperately trying to protect herself before the collapse, meaning she fought until the final second hoping someone would believe her innocence. But justice now had to come after her death, leaving one haunting fact behind. A marriage meant to unite two worlds ended in horror because one moment of truth was swallowed by fear, and the price paid was a life that never deserved to be taken.